keep finding ways that we're helping partners finding either, balance in their life or focus or purpose.
Practices that are going to help improve your project management skills or your finances.
We're here to talk about setting long-term goals and then how to achieve them.
Increasing your quality, therefore becoming the best place in town to work.
Welcome to Academy Live.
Welcome back to another episode of Academy Live. For MSP owners thinking about hiring your first few employees or for first-time managers, this show will be right up your alley. Today's show, we have Sarah Eric, Partner Education Specialist here at Pax8, a new hire herself, telling us all about preparing for your first hire. But before we get into all of that, let's hear from Rex.
What's that stuff behind his head? Frame photos and books he's read. Each one's got a story to tell, so let's educate ourselves on Rex's shelf.
Wow, that new Rex's Shelf intro is hot stuff. Zach Littlefield, thank you for all the work you put into that, writing the custom jingle. Just so excited. I don't think that could have come out better. So thank you, Zach. That's awesome. I'm going to grab something from my shelf that has to do with when I was a new hire, my first job. So I got a couple of coffee mugs. I got a couple coffee mugs up here that mean a lot to me. So let me start with this one. 1988, I was working at a grocery store, rotating vegetables, and my Uncle Charlie says, "Hey, I know you want to get into computers. I buy computers from this guy named Oli at this company called Computer Applications. You should go talk to him." And so this is what our logo looked like way back then. It's changed a little bit over the years, but Oli brought me in. Like I said, at 18 years old, I don't know if I even knew what the computer industry really was. Actually, there wasn't much of an industry, but I had a real opportunity there to grow up. The funny thing is, when I went and talked to him, I didn't even totally understand I was going on an interview. I just thought I was going to meet a friend of Charlie's. And next thing I know, the guy's offered me a job. And I left like $9 an hour at the grocery store in the Union for $5 an hour to go to work at Computer Applications. And a lot of people thought I was nuts for doing so, but it was probably one of the most important decisions I made in my career was to really get into the field that I was interested in. After it got confusing because we were doing networks, right? We were doing computer networking, not writing software. So the name Computer Applications didn't make a lot of sense. So we went on this big journey to change the company's name. And we came up with Alvaka Networks, Alvaka, which is an Icelandic word that means always awake, which we thought perfectly with the new network monitoring system that we were playing with. So always awake kind of fit. I recently went to that company's 40th anniversary party, and we came up with, and here's the new mug with the slightly updated and changed logo, but definitely excited. This is kind of a cool mug. It's got a spoon attached to it. Anyway, while I was there in the evening, Oli was talking about starting a company and hiring me and kind of what that was like as a young guy. But one of the things he said is he made the real common mistake of taking their best tech and promoting them to service manager. And I was like, wait, what'd you say? What did that mean? But it's a common mistake that we're all still making, right? We're taking our best tech and promoting them to service manager, and we're not really in a good position to help them learn how to stop being a tech and start being a service manager, which is ultimately why in 2010 C-Level Operations was founded, and now Pax8 Academy. So this mug, this Computer Applications mug from the I don't know, very early 90s, We Manage Your Network So You Can Manage Your Business, is on my shelf forever. Right on. I think we bring Chris and Bessie in now.
Wow, those are great stories, Rex.
Alvaca. I am going to remember that word. There's so many connotations I can think of around never
Yeah, in
sleeps.
Spanish, I think it's like of the cow, something like that.
It's the same,
But it means
only
always
it's
awake.
different.
Nice.
Thanks for sharing that, Rex. That was fun. It's good. It's really cool to see that.
And it's so I can't imagine 18-year-old Rex going into this interview, but I
With a
love
full
the
head of hair.
story. Yeah, exactly.
I wasn't going to touch that one.
And a
I know,
mustache.
and we all used to have our first jobs, right? But Rex and Chris, you both hired your first employees. Let's start with Chris. Can you share a little bit about what was that like to make your first hire at your MSP, and tell us a little bit about that?
I can't wait to hear it resonates so much with talking to Sarah. I think the first hire was almost like an accident. It was like an afterthought. It just kind of happened. Next thing you know, I had an employee. I met somebody. I'm like, oh, you're looking for work, and I'm getting pretty busy, and kind of would love some help around here. Why don't why don't you just join me and I'll give you stuff to do, and you can help me and do. And I was very fortunate. I think it was a very good hire for a period of time. We had a good experience until the company kind of grew and shifted, but yeah, it really was kind of. Rex, I don't know about you and thinking about your first hire.
The first word that came to mind was terrifying. You're making a commitment.
Mhm.
You're making a commitment to, not only support yourself and your family, but that person and their family, right? And it was scary, but I did the right things. I made sure I had enough money set aside that if I had a revenue drop, that I'd be able to afford it. But man, sending out an offer letter, and there's always that question: do you hire a junior person to help you with tasks that you can easily offload, or do you hire a peer, somebody that can do the same kind of work you can do? And I made the decision to hire a peer, which carried a salary, that was commensurate with my own. And deciding I'm going to take the plunge and carry a payroll load that's basically double my payroll costs was fun.
Scary.
Yeah, and I know Sarah is going to touch on all of those topics and areas. And so let's bring our guest on the show. I would love for Sarah to come on and introduce herself when she gets on.
Hi,
I
Sarah.
know she's still in the green room, but she's trying to get on. Oh, there she
There we
is.
go.
Aha!
Hey!
It's live. Sarah, do you mind introducing yourself and sharing a little humble brag?
Yeah, so I am Sarah Eric. I come from the partner side, so I've been, around Pax8 and even C-level when C-level was C-level, right, for a really long time. And I had a lot of opportunity throughout it. I was a co-owner and out here in Texas in the sticks a little bit, and was here. Got to be here from the ground up, from when we first started out all the way up until when I exited 45 employees. And what's so great about that now is that I finally get to live what I truly felt like my calling was to be able to empower others to live out their interests and their best dreams. And I get to do that every day, so it's pretty exciting.
Yay!
And I guess yeah, why I am really excited about this course is because I was not like Rex, and we did not do it right. It worked out for us, but we did not have the numbers to know what when we should bring them on or anything like that. Literally, we had a huge project to do. We were at the store, Best Buy, buying computers for this large project that we had to do. We couldn't figure out how we were going to get it all done, and the salesperson was a very good convincer that he could handle it. And by that I mean he checked us out with real speed, so It was not very qualified employee, and I am thankful that it worked out in the long run, but I learned a lot of tips and tricks about hiring, a lot about preparing for it. And I'm very thankful on the other side to have been joining this academy team, because the resources and knowledge that they've had and built alongside the development of how this looks is incredible. I have worked with really intelligent people. I have been very thankful to have intelligent people around. These guys blow it out of the water. They have spent so much of their time and effort creating the path for people so they don't have to stumble and fall along the way. And so I've been spending a lot of time learning. I've only been at Pax8 since the beginning of January. And a lot of times I just spend in virtual rooms listening, and I'm just in awe all the time about where people have been in this space that we have, this opportunity that we have to collaborate and to prevent these big failures. And I think this course was specifically exciting for me because I do work with a lot of, or hear a lot of people that are looking to bring into their first employees, but they do it in a way that can hurt their first employees and their team. And so that's what we're really trying to do, is prevent those.
That Wayback Machine, do you wish you can go back in time? Like, hearing Rex talk about his and hearing you talk about yours, that's why I love so much of what we do, because there's a lot of experience here to tap into to help people as they're making those decisions that many people in Academy have made multiple times or have experience making.
And
Yeah.
Sarah, can you explain a little bit about what your role is at Pax8 and what you're doing now?
Gosh, I didn't even do that. Yeah, so I'm a partner education specialist, which means that I create content for instructor-led courses and provide a lot of instructor-led courses. And a cool thing about it is that they're doing the subscription model now, so that people can pay a flat rate for their company to listen to as many subscriptions or as many courses as they want. And they're instructor led. They're people like me that have been there, have done it. You can ask questions. They give you homework. Like it's meant to be something that you're applying and really getting the grip of right then. And I also do peer groups as also, which is so fun, and I love them to death because I attribute so much of my own personal growth as well as business success to peer group rooms. So I have the best of both worlds in what I do.
We're so happy to have you. Now,
That's
Sarah,
super
I know.
exciting. Academy has so many great people. It's in the mid 30s people now that all have kind of been beat up in the trenches, that, their main driver is they want to go kind of share that with the community in sort of a give back fashion. So I know I'm super happy to have everybody in Academy that's here. And I love it more when partners discover it and they're like, what is this? I had no idea Pax8 did this.
Yes. And Sarah, I just want to make sure we have time for your quote. You brought in a quote today. Do you mind sharing that, and we can get into all the content you brought?
Yes. Pressure is privilege. It only comes to those who earn it. And that's by Billie Jean King. And this, I have held on to this quote for so long because it gave me such inspiration when things got tough, because it generally, when things felt like it was in a pressure point, it's because there was an opportunity on the horizon. It's because there was a bigger thing that could be brewing and moving forward. And it just reminded me that you can work a lot, like you can get yourself ready, but when opportunities come and when that pressure point is, that's a privilege that everybody doesn't get, those very specific moments of truth right there. And so I've always held close to that.
Excellent. Well, I hope you don't feel too much pressure being on our Academy.
Well, I came from MSP space, right? Like we kind of fine tune what pressure looks like.
How many of us say we do our best work under pressure? It's like, I delay and I delay or procrastinate, and then all of a sudden it's due, and I'm like, crap, I got to get that done, and I throw all my effort into it, and then everybody's like, oh, I can see you spent a lot of time on this, and I'm like,
no, this is formed out of pressure.
So, and we mentioned before, Sarah, that you are a new Pax8 member, new Academy member. Can you tell us a little bit about what your transition has been like as a new hire yourself? And just tell us a little bit about that before we jump in.
Well, it's very interesting because I've only ever worked in small business world, right? And as an owner for the majority of it. So as much as I really wanted smooth transitions for my employees coming in, I know how hard that is to make employees feel welcome and to feel like you got enough training for them and advice. And I come from a very just different place of understanding everything that has to go alongside um, to make it smooth. And I was overjoyed by Pax8. I mean, it's awesome to be part of a larger community that has so many different communities that you can be a part of, first of all. But it's hard to get the feel that you're important in large organizations. And I have felt that every day. I have people reach out to me all the time when they see me on calls. They're like, "Oh, hey, great to see your face," and I'm like, "Yeah." And it is very interesting because we've never met. I haven't met many of these people face to face, but there. It's neat to have such intentional connections here. And like I've said before, so in the MSP space, my job was a lot to formulate the plan, iron it out, and integrate it into the company. And here I'm with a lot of people that have done the exact same thing. I spend a lot of time more at the feet of and learning than I am in putting my knowledge out there, which is really inspiring.
Excellent.
Yeah, employee hiring and onboarding are two completely different things. And I'm pretty proud within Academy of our onboarding process. It involves a lot of shadowing, the other experts we have here.
I will say that I wasn't thinking I was getting the job after my interview with Chris. I thought that was a goner. Everyone laughs at that now.
We're not
Wait,
counting
what?
Is that part of the hiring? Are we talking about that? Are we going there, Sarah? Do we need to? Is that part of the learning journey here? You know what? This is what it's all about.
Yeah. Well, he did a good job interviewing. It was a very thorough and in-depth interview. Plus, that was like my fourth at the time, so I was like, "Gosh, am I going to get it? Am I not?" And so it was good.
Well, learning
Oh
that
my
process
gosh.
is a big part of it. So I'm looking forward to what you have to share and hearing more.
Excellent. Yeah, I think that's a perfect transition. Sarah, you brought a deck with you. Let's take a look at preparing for your first hire and just tell us a little bit about the course and let's take a look at that deck.
Time to get our learn on.
Oh, he's going to switch us to the first slide, though. There we go. So this course came kind of through an inspiration to build up some of our data or our content on leadership and management. And what I really felt like the first calling for that was how you prepare yourself, how you prepare your company for the very first step of that, which is hiring or bringing in your first hire. So this course is a 4-week long course of 1 hour, and it's really intended for MSPs that are first starting in that. I get a lot of questions of, if I have already had my first couple of hires, is this still a good one for me? Yes. And I tell you that with full belief that it is, because this was over decades of learning from me, from many other partners, from many other people. I have brought in tons of stuff. So I think that there's something for anybody to learn, honestly. Next slide, please. So when you're thinking about getting your first hire, generally what I hear is, when is it ready? When do I need to be bringing somebody in? There's just this literal question as to what's the right time to be doing that. And for that, there's a lot of different answers. I generally ask people first what their vision and goals are. If they want to continue to grow, if they want to continue to grow this year, or if that's in the plan for next year. Knowing your own strategic goals is a big point as to what kind of hire you're going to be bringing in. So if you don't have a vision for your company, meaning like where you plan to be in 5 years, 3 years, 1 year, really spending time to sit back and think with those things before you're just jumping into your next hire or your first hire. The other thing is financially. Financially, as Rex did right and that I did not, was making sure that you have months of salary within the bank on a cash basis prior to bringing them on. They recommend basically 3 to 6 months of payroll within your own within your bank system, right, when you hire somebody on, so that you can ensure to pay them out regardless of what happens. We had this really big belief that when people come in and they work for you, they are now your mouths to feed. I know a lot of people don't like that theory, but the reality is that they're counting on you to not only feed themselves but feed their families as well. And so it's really important that you take that with that much integrity or that much belief in yourself that you're going to be able to do that for them. There's also just a gravy spot of revenue of what of when to invest into your next or to your hires. A lot of people say that's between 250 to 500,000 revenue. I really think that it depends on what type of revenue you have. So I think that always going back to a budget or a profit loss sheet and analyzing that is best. And in my class, we go into big depth about that. So if you have any questions about that, that's where I would go for it. And then also a time frame. You want to make sure that when you're analyzing the cash that's in your bank, making sure that you don't have any big payments that are going to be going out, such as taxes or any other yearly contracts that you have that are going to be going out. You want to make sure that you're accommodating those. And then getting your administrative resources in order. I guess I get most questions about like, what do I do for HR? And as much as it's not what you should do, I definitely used Google for my HR guidance, and I do not advise that for anybody. There are plenty of resources out there, and I go through a number of them that are a monthly fee to be able to do. But you want to get some kind of HR help to help build up an employee contract, to help analyze benefits that you want to be rolling out, anything like that, to monitor and manage PTO and overtime payments. All of those things really need a hand and assist in it. And that going into payroll too. And then we talk a lot about payroll and the taxes, that taxes are a big part of payroll. And if you are not a religiously habitual person that can create those kind of habits to paying payroll taxes in a steady amount of time, to get help to do so, it'll save you in dividends to not, if you are not that type of person, to have that resource for yourself. And then always getting with your company's insurance to see what kind of necessities that they have for you when you're doing things like building up your employee contract. What do they need to have in there? Those types of things are definitely things to be doing before you're even interviewing, before you're even hiring, before you're putting out a job description. So you need to have an idea of what you're going to be doing there.
I love this, Sarah.
Do you?
You might have to update your business license to say that you have employees, right? And so that's something I remember having to do, because at first I started it with just as a sole proprietor, and I remember marking no, I won't have employees. So then you have to get some tax numbers, some different tax numbers, and they have to decide, are you going to pay your stuff quarterly or monthly, or and that all changes depending on what you're spending, but. I remember.
And depending on,
go ahead.
You have to report that you're starting. You have to report the employee that they're now working for you. That's a big part of that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, you have a very limited amount of time to report that, because they might have some checks, things that need to be attached, and they need to have time to get you that information. So I think that's why Sarah was talking about get some HR advice as soon as possible.
Yeah, not just Google is great for a lot of things, but I think the thing is it's really important. Like hiring somebody else. And I by the way, I love Rex and Sarah that you both kind of led into that onus of responsibility, and I love that you guys really tapped into that, because I think that shows a good sign. It is important to take that on, and when you do, doing it the right way is huge, and not winging it. It's amazing how much cleanup it can take. So having those things, Sarah, it sounds like, it very familiar to me, of kind of like doing it as you're doing it. One of the things you said that I caught on was having some of these ducks in a row before you even start posting the job, before you start interviewing. And I think that's key. I mean, I didn't do that. I learned as I went. Like, oh, okay, I'm going to do this. Oh, what should I have done last week or last month? So the fact that you said that, I think, is huge. I'm kind of curious to ask you, can you think of any other key points? Like, what did you learn the hard way? Sorry.
So a lot of things, a lot of things. There was a reoccurring joke in my company that like what part of employee contracts came from what employee, right? Like what ex-employee. And because we never really had an employee contractor agreement that really was thought out and considered like our core values in it. So we were constantly learning on the go and band-aiding it as we went. So that's something that I hated that culture that it created of like, oh, so and so went and now we have a new part of our employee contract that came in, right? I which we talk a lot about in the course, and I really want to highlight here is that core values and things that are very intentional for your company need to be somewhere in your employee contract. If not, how that looks or anything, or posted on the walls as like guidances as to what we hold dear and want to do. I really think that's beneficial. And probably one of my other ones is that there's no thing as common sense. If it's important enough, you should probably be putting it in your employee contract. And I said this in jest to somebody the other day about that. If you don't want holes in pants anywhere on pants, unfortunately, you probably should put it in somewhere in your contract that you shouldn't be going out on client sites with holes in your pants, because that apparently is not like it's not common knowledge about where holes are okay and where holes are not okay. Like those are, it's ridiculous, but those are kind of the when you're presenting yourself in a business way, you kind of have to outline what that looks like and what you want your business to be represented as.
And making assumptions, like you said, assumption, make it explicit, right?
Yep, absolutely. Be clear.
Rex, what about you? I want to know what comes to your mind.
Oh, well, one of the mistakes I made is I was saving money for this individual, my first hire. And then the end of the year came along and there's sort of a mark right there that, oh, that's all profit. And I had to pay, 30% plus of it just disappeared as taxes. Where at the end of the year, had I spent some money on something that I needed for that employee, like their computer or something, then I wouldn't have had to give away, 30, 35% of it. So, just be real careful if you're kind of building that cushion for getting that first employee. Be real careful of when the end of the year is, because I wasted a lot of money in taxes I shouldn't have.
And we're going to be talking about
Yeah, that's really
taxes
great.
on an upcoming show too. So stay tuned, everyone. But Sarah, can we bring
Yeah.
back up the slides so you can tell us more about we talked about preparing your company for a new employee.
Mhm.
And then now I think the next is more about preparing service. It's a service organization.
Yes. This is where we get nitty gritty into the MSP space, right? Because that a lot of those was for any company. And this is where we can go. This is what you guys need to know directly for your businesses. And that's one, if you don't already have an RMM that you are utilizing, that you're trying to push its standards on, that's first, right? RMM getting in there. And I'm talking specifically for when you're working towards a hire. And the reason just being is that one, that can cut down on your noise in general, that, that can prevent you the need for an employee. If the need that you're feeling is there's a lot of work to be done, there's a lot of noise that I'm having to handle, all that kind of stuff, RMM can address a lot of that from the get-go. And the next one is password management. And that's just, I know we've come a long, long way since I started off in the MSP space, but back in the day, it was all the same password for everybody, right? And that's wasn't okay then, and it's super not okay now. So password management, so that there's not one thing that you're putting into all of your networks everywhere, that they are complex and that they're managed in one place, and that these new employees can access them, so that you're not trying to have to text passwords or anything like that, which is all super not okay, right? So a password management tool, and then a documentation system. Documentation systems and ticketing systems are different. And the reason that the documentation system itself is so important is just so that you have some place for your client information to be going, your information about how things are set up, your information to be shared within your employees that you have off of SOPs, which are standard operating procedures. You're going to start building those. And where do those live and lie, and where can they find them? Those three things I feel like are crucial to begin really the bringing in. And honestly, it's a great step to be working on for that in between when you're saying, is this time for me to bring in an employee or not? Those three things to be getting up and running are great to have done prior to them coming in. The next two are the ticketing system, or a PSA, and the standard operating procedures. And I put these in a different color, and I kind of separated them because I get a lot of pushback that we don't need a ticketing system when it's just us. I challenge that you do. I think that ticketing systems are important all the time for many reasons, and we're going to talk about that further on, I believe. And if not, I will definitely highlight some of those issues. But there's got to be some place where your employees are being able to ticket and document, not only just for a visibility to your clients about what's going on and dispatching, or them being able to figure out which systems, which tickets to work, which issues to work, and the priority for them, but also for your visibility into it. Because at the end of the day, it's still your job to maintain the work that's going out. So you have to have some kind of check systems for you to be able to review how they're done, what they've done. And I don't really have a clear other way to be doing it outside of ticketing systems. Always open for interpretation on that or feedback on that, but nobody's been able to give me something else besides that. So I think they're super important. And then standard operating procedures. We're going to go through a few of those within our class, but just from my standpoint, there's a few that you really need to have put in place, and it depends on what your first hire is. I've spent a lot of time talking with Adam Hanneman this morning about if that person's not a tech, which is totally happens where they instead get like a bookkeeper as that first person. What exactly of those standard operating procedures do you want to have in place? And it depends on who you're bringing in. But I can tell you, if it's a tech, then I'm going to be looking at incident response. I'm going to be looking at client down. I'm going to be looking at backups. I'm going to be looking at the top things that would put my business at risk. And I'm writing down exactly how I want them to handle that.
Good. One of the things you said there that kind of caught me too is kind of tracking training. Like, how do you know? Do you ever run into? Well, I showed you that. I taught you that. You never trained me this. What are some of the ways that you've found to be effective to kind of know, they're on track, they've got it, that they can take on that next step? One of the slides we'll talk about is kind of that gradually handing something off. But what are some of the things you recommend to kind of track where an employee's at in this process?
Yeah, actually, if you'll go forward maybe 2 slides.
I'm jumping.
There's a couple things.
Jumping ahead.
You are, and that's totally okay. I think that was a really good segue. So if you want to go forward 2 slides and show it. Mm-hmm. Tracking it, what you said is a little interesting, because unless you're actually, I handed you this, now where is it in this spot? But I do feel like there is this level of training, or release of responsibility, as they call it, which is that you can't just, hey, come sit down, I want you to watch this, and then I want you to be able to do it from now on. That there's actually multiple steps to it. I do, and you watch, right? And then usually we skip to the you do and I forget about it until it goes wrong situation. So really being intentional that it's I do, you watch, I do, you help, you do, and I help, and then you do and I watch. And the big thing about the you do and I watch is not necessarily you do and I'm going to sit over your shoulder and watch exactly how you do it. But there's this theory, and that's the other picture of this process of delegation, that just because you've now switched over this responsibility, just because you've now taught it, the accountability of that work is still on the manager, is still on the owner at that time, right? And how you would do that is setting up, well, when you first start training, when you first start doing it, right? Reviewing tickets and reading through and seeing, hey, did they follow the steps that I told them? Did they go through the guidelines that I did? And I understand that this is not the most fun place as a manager to be is reviewing tickets. But what you're doing is building your trust that they've got it so that you can get to the part where you're just reviewing KPIs and looking at a very, very broad level and then moving on. So many of these steps is what's missed when I hear people come to me and they say, how do you know whether to let go of a tech? Like, how do you know when to let go of an employee, right? And generally, they're feeling that way because they recognize the lack of steps of handoffs of things. So having that in mind and really spending some intention on this is, I think, what would, at the end of this, if you really go through the whole training process and then you really push off that authority, but on your side are reviewing the tickets and then reviewing the high level of things. If you're doing all of those things, you know if they're going to succeed or not. You know at the end of all of that if they've got it or not, right? So it takes away a lot of that gray area. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, you did. You did
Yeah,
great. I think knowing that process is there, Rex.
I was going to say I've studied kind of that learning methodology quite a bit in the last 10 or 15 years, and I'm many of you know I'm a Boy Scout, a Scoutmaster, right? So we use the EDGE method: explain, demonstrate, guide, and enable. We got situational leadership with coaching, supporting, delegating, or coaching, supporting, uh, something delegating. There's the hierarchy of competency, right? I think I've studied 5 different learning models, and every single one of them have the 2 steps where the teacher is doing the work, and the third and fourth steps where the student is doing the work. And I just found it interesting that all of them have the exact same 4 steps. I do it, you tell them, show them, help them, watch them. I do it, you watch. I do it, you help, or you do it. Yeah, you said it earlier, but they all have the same 4 steps, and we all want to skip like 2 of them. But if you stick to the 4, then the people learn, right? I know with the coaching, we talk about the 5 stages of operational excellence. Anytime you roll out a process, it's understand the best practice, document it your way, train your team, and then we finally get to the 4th phase, which is implementation, and then the 5th phase, I always say, takes twice as long as phase 1 through 4 combined. It's the inspect what you expect, right? It's that cycle of measuring. Are people following the new process? Do they understand it? Are they doing it correctly? And then get in this cycle of teaching and coaching until they do. And that's why that 5th phase takes so long, but it's where all the real traction happens. So I'm glad to see that we're talking about that.
And I think too,
Yeah, I
with
just
this, it
learned.
takes longer, right? Like, it's easier just to show them and then walk away, but the results are horrific. I think we've all seen that, and so I think we all want the easy button. So
Mhm.
Sarah, like you said, you've kind of learned that that preparation really pays off. Is that kind of why? I mean, I'm assuming that's kind of what you've learned in this.
Yeah, well, I think that it's intentional to call out that nobody's hiring somebody because they have all the time in the world to do this, right? Like the trigger to hire someone has come because the workload is too much for the current place. So it takes real intention of what's important and prioritizing why that this would be a benefit in the long run, right? I talk a lot about how from the day one that you decide I'm going to bring an employee on, you now need to start budgeting your time to be doing that. And it's different. And you will really need to budget and set aside time to do it because you're not used to having that pull on there. So it's an investment of yours. So, and I think when people look at it that way, they look at every employee that comes in and that this person is an investment for us, right? It's an investment of our time, of our energy, of our resources. And if done right, can bring back time, energy, resources, right? If we put it in and really respect that, then it can pay back. Otherwise, if we don't, it can end up being a big cost and an expense and drain energy. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big proponent of the training models.
And you talked about accountability. I really believe unless you've done those 5 phases, document, understand, document, train, implement, measure, that you have no business holding somebody accountable. And you're just creating almost like a toxic work environment for the employee if you're not doing all 5 of those phases.
Yeah, I fully agree with you.
Sarah, what else do you have for
Uh,
us?
yeah, let's go to the slide before, if we can, please. I want to talk a little bit about who do you look for, and I got this great sheet from Adam Hanneman, who's been such a great resource for this, and because he works a lot with companies that are dealing with these issues. And what he basically brought up was a SWAT analysis for who you're going to hire, and it brought out just a basics of where your strengths or the team that you're working with, even this doesn't even have to be just you if you have more than one person. What strengths do you have in all these different areas? And really, and I agree with him because he was talking about this morning with me, how all 5 of these are so important in a business and really need to be having their own strengths in it. They need somebody in your company that has them as a strong suit. So really working on building those up. And then identifying what your weaknesses are. In the end, those will go down to your opportunities and your threats. And we're focusing on the internal version of these. If you don't get these things filled, like let's say you don't have somebody that's super strong in finances. If you don't get those filled, then what's the opportunity or what's the threat if you don't have somebody in there? And the threat is that eventually you might not be able to know if you're making money, how you're making money, where is the money coming from? Do you have cash in the bank? It can set you up for failures in the long run. So really spending some time diving through each one of those and figuring out where your weaknesses are, where you could be filling in some gaps. I go in through this in a way that I not only focus on this, but then focusing on what kind of cash do you have to be spending on this person? And are you looking for someone to play a seat of something that you already have built out? Do you have SOPs already created and need somebody to work a situation that you already have? Or are they building something from the ground up? Also depends on who you're going to be bringing in. A lot of what they talk about is bringing in either a peer or someone to do the work, right? Those are 2 different things and different investments. They're different financial investments, they're different time investments. But do you want somebody that's going to own that area and build it up? Or do you want them to be doing what you have already in place? I think something that I find that a lot of MSPs, including myself, do is that they hire financially and in a place where they need someone to be part of the building process, but they hire someone that's capable of doing the doing, that they don't have experience in themselves to be doing it. And there's a lot of times that I see that failing and not moving forward. There's a lot of times that it works in this one very small niche, right? But if you're looking for a peer in a situation in any of these areas, then you want to be investing with somebody that has had experience doing that already, that has no problem jumping in, building up the processes, building up the standards for it, and driving with it. The opportunity on that is that they could help build up revenue. They could help in ways of your business maturity level coming up, but they are an investment. And if you're not ready for that kind of investment, then you're looking for not only somebody to be filling in some of these weaknesses that you have, but maybe weaknesses that you can have consultants build up what it looks like, or that you can build up processes from, like if you have a weakness in finance that can work alongside an accountant, a bookkeeper that can work alongside an accountant to know how to roll through it. After you understand who you're looking to hire, then really getting focused on targeted recruiting. This is a big passion area of mine, and one I spend a lot of time in the course talking about, which is that you should be treating employees or potential employees like ideal employees, as in like the ideal client profile. If you had a sales, right? Same way for recruitment. You are building up what this person looks like. What do their hobbies look like? What do they what experience would it say they have? What would they say that their strengths are, and what would they say their weaknesses are? Building up and formulating that person so that when you see them, when you meet them, you know exactly who they are. Okay, next 2 slides, I think. All right, intro to management. So we talked a lot about how to pass off something, but in any job, in any time that you have it, you want to make sure that your employee can say, what does success look like for me today, this week, this month, whatever? What are the goals that they're expecting me to do? And what are the company goals that I'm helping them achieve? Where are we going as a team? These can be done in one-to-ones. They can be done at the very beginning on onboarding and met quarterly. I suggest one-to-ones every week. That's part of that investment time that you have in them. And I have a formula of kind of like what should be handled in there. It shouldn't be you presenting all the information. They should be having stuff that they're reporting on, bringing blockers and barriers to you so that you can make sure to push them forward. I guarantee you're going to say that this feels like a lot. I'm taking a lot of admin time doing it. But at the end of the day, it's going to save you from frustrated employees that quit and they didn't know how to ask for help, or that they might have just did not have the tools that they felt like they needed to do it. And it was a simple ask, but they didn't understand that they could just come and ask you. So one of the things about the one-on-ones and what's really important is teaching them and allowing them, how do I bring up concerns, blockers, and ideas to you? When is that an opportunity for me to do that? On the other side for you, the owner or the new manager, you're going to be learning your management style. What we go in, and it's way too much information to be putting in this specific moment, but what kind of manager are you, and what's the strengths and weaknesses to that? You're not going to be a perfect manager from the get-go. It's just not a thing. You're going to have to formulate ideas of what managers work well for you, plus your personality, plus the personalities of things that you're working with. It's going to be a fine-tuned process from now to the end of time. How do you create those management habits? Along with the time that you have allotted, what do you need to accomplish in those times? A pushback that I get regularly is timesheet review. You're going to have to do it. You're not going to like it. It's going to have to be done. Just those habits to build in every day of what that looks like, checking in with your employees and saying, hi, how are you? Even when you're getting yelled at and talked to by a million different clients, making sure that that's a priority so that the employee feels like they're a priority to you. And prepare for the hard conversations before the hard conversations are needed. There's tons of books and resources on it, and it's different for every single person, especially depending on personalities. Crucial conversations, crucial accountability. There's 1,000 of them. Learning how to address issues before the issues come. I cannot tell you how important that is. Next slide, please. All right, my MSP secret sauce, and one that I told you that you're not going to like, but we're going to talk about it, is why you need timesheets and documentations and why they're way more important than you think they are. It just is. It's a game changer, and I'm going to tell you that you're going to get to a point in your company if you don't have this where it'll probably be like 3-4 employees where you're just not moving forward and you're hitting a plateau and you're losing money and you don't know why you're losing money, or you don't know why you're making enough money. And you go to somebody and they say, oh, well, what's your profitability rate by client? Because that's the first thing that you would go, right? When you start not having those numbers, that's when you'll start agreeing with me that timesheets and documentation are so important. You cannot hold true accountability without key performance indicators. And where do key performance indicators metrics come from? On the service side, so many of them are timesheets, documentation, tickets, ticketing system, all the tickets going into one spot, creating tickets for every new issue that you come across. All of that, it starts with the ticketing system and the timesheets and documentation. Quality control, internally and externally demanded. If you're looking through your stuff to see how people are performing, you would want to be looking through timesheets and tickets for that. If a client says, hey, this wasn't done right, the only really fallback that you have if you don't have tickets is to ask the tech what happened, which is not going to be valid information to be able to go back to the client and stand on your own 2 legs on that. So having that quality control is documentation is just absolutely essential for that. I already stated client profitability reports, but there's also for forecasting labor needs. You can start seeing trends within your system about like utilization rates and overtime hours going up and things like that when you feel like there might be when you're working in the fields of it feels like chaos, if your numbers aren't suggesting it, then it might just be a chaotic moment instead of actually need it. You would want to see trending of tickets going up or hours on tickets going up over a long period of time, not just a week because someone was out on vacation. You want to have the real data as to, yes, my end users is up. We're still performing the same way on our tickets. It's just now that our ticket trending is going up. And then the last thing is that building knowledge. With a good PSA, building a knowledge base. With a good PSA, people are going to be able to research issues that came up as to what other techs did to resolve it within your own PSA. And that can help a lot to be able to say, hey, this client and this issue, and say exactly how it was formulated before. It is a game changer. In addition to that, one that I just thought of that's not up there is to be able to find reoccurring issues to prevent noise in the future. That's also a benefit from that. All right, next, please. All right, so one thing in this course is about management versus leadership. So the last class of it all is just on leadership itself. And the differentiator about managing is managing tasks, managing details, managing KPIs, whereas leaders is actually developing and inspiring people to be able to do that. They could not be a bigger difference and need just as much intention in them. And so if you'll go to the last slide, please, I'll do a little bit of a high level here for that. Leadership management tends to focus on this primary needs of a job. Does a good job fit? Do they understand what is necessary for them in any given day? Do they have the tools and resources that they need to get their job done? And are we acknowledging their successes as well as their improvements that need to be made? That's the primary needs of an hierarchy of employee. The rest of this kind of goes into leadership land. But the reason why they're so important is that you get peak performance from any employee when they've reached the top tier of this hierarchy of needs. Otherwise, when you have employees that kind of live in that primary needs status, you'll hear things like when you discovering their why are they here? Why do they come to work? It's based off of, I need to make money. I need to pay for my family. And instead of staying there, getting to this point where they're saying, because this is my passion, because I see vision, because I understand my purpose and how this all plays out. So leadership is about pulling and developing in them the rest of the way to not only be a great company workplace, but one that they feel like they're succeeding in every day as well. Okay. So my last few slides here is talking about the rest of Pax8 Academy and how many resources are out there for you guys. Not only, so my class starts in the end of March. You can find it in the marketplace. I don't even know exactly where to drill down into it. Bessie can help with that. But it talks about preparing for your first hire. But there's so much out there. If you guys don't feel like this is the right suit for you, there's service management and advanced service management, and they have a lot more about key performance indicators and managing service in itself, how to develop it, how to really hone in on it. There's also business planning workshop. I actually referenced this into one of mine because I think it's essential before you even get to the I'm going to hire someone, when you're just preparing for it, to really work through what your business plan in general is. There's a whole leadership academy of demand and a management category that you can go through. I've pulled lots of stuff in there. They're great resources. And then there's a success through mission and vision. I plan that I go with the business planning on that. Really having those identified prior to hiring or within your first few hires, it would be a huge game changer. And my last slide of other resources is that this is not just going to be a one class and done. We're actually putting this out with an intention of a whole roadmap of management and leadership opportunities. So we're going to be having, so they want you to lead, ideal for people that have been put into leadership positions, not necessarily management, but leadership positions. So tech leads and things like that, when they were performing really well and you want them to lead into it. Also, intro to management. So this is going to talk not just about service management because we have already that, but okay. And then emerging leaders. I think we're getting down to the wire
That
here.
was a ton of info. That was awesome. I think there's a ton more. You know, you dive way deeper when you actually do this course. How many weeks is the course?
4 weeks.
4 weeks. Okay, yeah. So, but
Very high
again, we
level
can only cover.
overview.
Yeah, we can only cover so much in those 4 weeks. Willis, are you ready with that? I think we
Yeah,
had a
I'm super
question.
excited about it.
We had a question in the chat from Lisa G. So let me kind of read that. Lisa says, "Does your course cover specific skills training in leadership?"
Well, so we're going to cover leadership skills and the last one specifically. Management skills will be on the third week and leadership is in the fourth week. Yes. But I'm telling you, this is one class. Leadership is such a huge topic. And one, again, that's why we have the roadmap, right? That because there's so much coming out. That emerging leaders, that last one that we're going to be doing, that's going to be diving into very specific leadership skills and stuff like that. So if it's not what you're asking for on this one, it will be on that one.
Fantastic. Sarah, we are kind of out of time, so we got to move on to the last couple things we got to do. But thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for the intro to the course. I know we've done a couple of these over the, I don't know, almost 40 shows we've done now, something like that. But Sarah, thank you so much.
Thank you. I enjoyed being here.
I think it's time for a sales pitch real quick.
Play ball. Okay, this week we're going to take a break from baseball and go to a different sport. Fishing. Fishing where the fish are. A business coach I had when I was in the MSP world used this all the time. He said, "Keith, go fish where the fish are. You want to do business with construction companies? Go find them, hang out with them." So what I want you to think about is networking in the right spot. And I'm not talking about computer networking, building business relationships, finding new people, the right people. So let me share with you a real story around my fishing experiences. I take my family probably every 3 years to this resort in Western Maryland called Deep Creek Lake. It's a really nice lake. And in the morning, when everybody's asleep, I grab my fishing gear, I grab my coffee, and I go down the pier and I fish. I don't have a lot of success doing that. Maybe catch a fish or two, but they're not big enough to feed the whole family, so I throw them back. Contrarily to that, a friend of mine has a boat, and he takes me out on the Chesapeake Bay. He's got a fish finder, a depth finder. He gets out there, we stop, he's like, "Keith, go ahead and throw the reel out, the fish are right below." And we'll come back with 19-inch, 44-inch, somewhere in that ballpark, rockfish. Fish that we can feed the family with. So how does this story tie into networking? Well, you can go to the local mix and mingle where you can meet a bunch of people, few maybe good prospects, maybe a couple or centers of influence, or you can go to a networking association where your ideal client goes, like me on the Chesapeake Bay with my friend, and bring dinner to you and your company. So let's touch all the bases on how you meet new people at a networking event. 1, identify and narrow your ideal client, that target client profile. Know at least 2 to 3 industries that you want to focus on. 2, find out by searching on the internet where they go, what associations they belong to. Is there a manufacturing association in your town? 3, if you can't find it on the internet, go ask your clients that are in that industry. If you have manufacturing clients, go talk to them. It's like, "Hey, is there any associations or networking events that you attend? Can I come along?" Pay for the event. Pay for your client to go with you. Even better, have that networking buddy. 4, get 1 to 2 networking events per quarter on your schedule. When you go, be prepared knowing what you're going to say. What are 2 to 3 problems you solve for that industry? Have a goal for who you want to meet, how many people you want to meet, how many LinkedIn connections you want to have, how many coffee meetings you want to have with potential prospects, as well as potential centers of influence that are trying to do business in the same industry. So get out there, get involved in your business community, and then share with me how you went out there and landed that big fish.
Play ball!
Thanks so much, Keith. Let's go to final thoughts.
Gosh, one of the things that makes that first hire so difficult, and I remember, is I need 100% more revenue to pay for that second person, right? I mean, especially a technician or an engineer in a service role. If you think about it, like when I'm trying to go from my 10th hire to my 11th hire, I I only need 10% more revenue from each person to know that I've got the revenue to pay for the 11th. It's that first one where it's like 100% more revenue. Um, and even if I can get them enough revenue to cover 1x of another person's billing, I'll probably go ahead and pull the trigger. But just keep your finances in order and you'll be fine. Chris?
Uh, Proactive versus reactive. A lot of times we talk about it in peer groups. I have somebody I think I'm, going to hire. I met somebody, and it's kind of responding to the environment about hiring versus, like Sarah talked about, planning ahead, looking at your finance, looking at your HR, looking at your documentation. I love that SWAT thing about what do you need? Really evaluate and being proactive versus reactive, and think about it now, even if you're not ready, and start evaluating that so when it comes, you can be ready. Bessie?
My last thought is you can buy this course right now. We've got the link in the notes below, and you can just go into the marketplace and search preparing for your first hire. It'll come right up. It starts on March 19th. We would love to have you there. I know Sarah would be excited to have you in the class. So sign up for the subscription. But thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to check us out next week. Our guest will be Zach Paulson from ABM Technology Group, and he'll be talking all about account management. So remember, we are live every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Mountain and on demand always. So don't forget to like and subscribe our YouTube channel. Rex?
And as always, think about what are you going to do differently tomorrow. Bye, everyone.
Bye.